Hello, welcome to this video. And this video is going to cover an article titled Targeting Pronunciation and Perception. You can't forget perception here with technology. And this is written by Mary Grantham O'Brien here. And this article or book chapter is part of this book called Engaging Language Learners Through CALL. CALL here is abbreviation of Computer Assisted Language Learning. It is published in 2019. But from what I've seen in the references in this book chapter, it seems like this chapter has been written in 2017 instead of 2019. So let's get into it. And here's the table of contents. So I'm going to cover from the introduction to conclusion and future research. This organization is very similar to the original book chapters or structure, but it's a bit different, but overall very similar. So I'm going to cover literature review and going to look at some evaluation components that could be used to evaluate CAP softwares and apps. And then after we know what kind of components that we can look for evaluation, we can look at some examples. And there are 4 kinds, which I will say in more detail. Before I get into the topic, here are some preview questions that could really make you engaged in this topic. So here are 4 questions about it. Please take a time to pause this video and try to think about these questions. And some keywords has been bolded. Yeah. Native speakers, foreign accent, intelligibility, and technology. I hope you had a time to think about these questions, so I'll get into the book chapter. Okay, so here's the introduction. First, I'm going to talk something about the situation. Okay, foreign accent is a way of pronunciation influenced by L1, the first language, or the mother tongue by the speaker, and is very easily noticeable, which can be detected even in the following severe conditions. All right. Even a speech that is short as 30 millisecond is can notice like foreign accent in this. So 1 millisecond is actually 1,000th of a second. So this is a very short speech sound, and people can notice the accent in it. And even when the speech melody is left that is stripped out of speech sound, the foreign accent can be detected. So for example, let's say if I pronounce speech, and here's the pronunciation of it, even if like all these information about this pronunciation is stripped away, only the speech melody could like tell people that this speech has foreign accent or not. And even when it's played backward, people can notice foreign accent. And even the people who does not speak the language can notice the foreign accent. And here is a funny illustration of this situation. So, meow, the person is trying to mimic cat sound, but he's thinking, bah, listen to his accent. Okay, so accents, foreign accents are very easily noticeable. And the problem of this issue or foreign accent is that it often leads to stigmatization, such as low mental ability and less sophistication. Even though having foreign accent does not necessarily mean the person is suffering from any mental disease or conditions. Language teachers often do not focus pronunciation in classrooms because there are different reasons why teachers won't even focus on pronunciation. In terms of situation, there's no time to teach pronunciation, so they're busy in their classroom. In terms of learner, teachers perceive that there's no interest or motivation among students to learn or train their pronunciation. And in terms of material, there's lack of engaging pronunciation exercises. So there are a bunch of like parroting back, exercises like repeating drills, but not so engaging. In terms of norm or maybe principle, I would say, there's a general lack of success by post-pubescent learners. So people who pass their puberty often have foreign accents can't really remove their accents. And even for themselves, the teachers have little teacher training on pronunciation instructions, so they might not be able to teach pronunciation from the first place. However, fortunately, foreign accent speech could be understood quite well. So, what is saying the message would be that intelligibility should be the goal of pronunciation training instead of getting rid of foreign accent. And here, CAPT, which is abbreviation for computer assisted pronunciation training, could be a good solution because it has these different features. Individualized instruction and assessment is possible through CAPT. You can provide learner autonomy and repeatability uh, by CAPT, and the big data accumulated in the system could be used for better assessment or analysis or diagnosis. Okay, and here's something about pronunciation training. So, when we are doing pronunciation training, there could be two broad like focus of instructions. So first would be segment. So these are like little beats of sounds, consonants, and vowels. So for these, we can focus on place, manner, duration, and etc. And some bigger units, such as words and sentences, we can focus on prosody. We can think about like stress, rhythm, and intonation. Okay, and there are four different categories for coursewares for pronunciation training. First one, perceptual training. Second, recording and analysis. The author says this is a basic way of training. And the third one would be ASR, which is abbreviation for automatic speech recognition system. And the fourth last one would be the visualization technique. So yeah, that's all about introduction. And now let's get into literature review. The first part is brief history of pronunciation training. So, people or researcher has have been focusing on pronunciation a lot because thanks to the rise of audiolingualism in early 20th century. You know, there was a heavy focus on accurate production and a lot of exercise such as minimal pair drills were used for segments. So here we have a rise due to thanks to ALM, audiolingual method. However, soon the interest decreased. So I would say I just kind of named it as dark age. It was happened during late 1960s and to 1980s. The author doesn't specifically mention it, but I think it's due to communicative language teaching coming to the forefront in the field. And then and during late 1980s, it has come back. There has been emphasis on top-down pronunciation training, which show that when teachers focus on prosody and training on prosody, their intelligibility increase. So now here we have this upper slope here. And where are we now? Now all levels of pronunciation are considered important and ought to be taught. So we can teach things like speech segments, words and phrase stress patterns, pauses, intonation, and fluency. So they're saying we should focus on all of these parts overall. Okay, and the second part of literature review is current research and CAPT. So here are some opinions on CAPT. So the benefits argued in the literature is that it's motivating, it's quick, it's repeatable, it's reliable, raises awareness, fosters precision, builds confidence, and develops pronunciation skills. However, there are people raising cautions on CAPT, especially when there's when those are pedagogically unsound and when there's incorrect feedback given by the CAPT systems, and a lot of CAPT apps or whatever educations lack theoretical foundations, and a lot of them do not distinguish between variation and error. So this is a big problem for like these pronunciation trainings, and a lot of times pronunciation training focus too much on accuracy over intelligibility. But Here's some research on the educational outcomes of pronunciation training. Well, the positive results suggest that at least there's at least moderate improvements when we do pronunciation training. And but the negative results is that beginner level benefits more than advanced level students. So not everyone gets to benefit by pronunciation training. And the third part of literature review, we turn to research approaches to pronunciation training, and there are two approaches. The first one would be looking at the learner performance rating. So, for example, we could do an experiment on the pronunciation training by having control group and experimental group. So, like, experimental group would go through pronunciation training, and their speech would be compared before the pronunciation training and after. Okay. And another approach would be survey of the training from the learners. So this kind of research will look at how learners think of the pronunciation training. And one example would be this pronunciation attitude inventory. So this survey tool can be used to see how learners think of the pronunciation training. The third part, research approaches to pronunciation training continued. Um, and one lesson learned from the research is that learner awareness is very important for improving pronunciation. So, a comparison of studies show that there is a need to focus specifically on pronunciation in order for there to be improvement. Since it is unlikely that students will acquire better pronunciation in exclusively meaning based tests. So, there's learning when there is an awareness, okay? The last part of literature review is connection to pedagogy. So, where does pronunciation training fit into in terms of education or pedagogy? It would be one kind of form focused instruction because pronunciation could be thought of as one kind of form, but people only think form as like words or spellings or whatever or grammars, but pronunciation is could be part of a form. And what pedagogical goals does CAPT meet? So what kind of benefit? What's the advantage of using CAPT? It affords learner autonomy. There's a famous phrase like anywhere, anytime. You can by using technology, you can learn anywhere, anytime, and it offers differentiation or personalization, and it lowers affective filter because you're not talking to a person. You will be less nervous, and there could be a variety of input quality, a good quality of inputs. So like there could be various input types. There could be like speaker variation, and the input can be enhanced and so forth. And it CAPT can actually improve perceptual skill because of these good inputs, and this in turn would be related to improvement in the production. However, many times CAPT relies on self-evaluation, and even when there is a feedback, it is not explicit enough to be helpful. So, what kind of evaluation components can we use to judge whether a software is good or not? Well, here are 5 criteria: pedagogy, technology, user experience, input quality, and learner autonomy. Okay, well, these can be like divided into like subsections, but I will not go into that detail here. Um, and we now turn to examples of CAPT courseware and apps, and there are 4 kinds. So perceptual training, recording analysis, which is called basic pronunciation training in the article in the book chapter. The third would be ASR, automatic speech recognition, and the fourth would be visualization. So let's look at them in like good tables. It's a good summarization of it. So the author brings 4 examples for perceptual training: Forvo, English Accent Coach, Natural Reader Software, and AnyTune. They are different in types, and these are the 5 criteria for judging the coursework. I'm not gonna like read every single cell, so please take a moment to pause and look at them. And For second type, for the basic pronunciation training, we have a shadowing. So we have three examples: multi-track sound recorder, Audacity, and VoiceTube. And for ASR, two examples are given: Dragon Naturally Speaking and EduSpeak. And lastly, for visualization, there are three examples given. However, as I browse through the web, sounds and English pronunciation, these two examples were out of business. Okay, so only one example is alive to now. Okay. So how can we sum this up? So for these four different kinds of pronunciation training: perceptual training, recording and analysis, ASR, and visualization, we have different results for each of this. So for pedagogy, perceptual training, it is based mainly on auditory training, and recording analysis is mainly using listen and repeat, minimal pairs, reading and shadowing methods, and ASR. Its communication is limited to a few possible responses because they will just only give the prompts and make you record it, and they will give you a diagnosis whether you're wrong or right. And visualization, it only gives you like the visual cues or sagittal views of your pronunciation, whatever. So it's not communicative. For diagnosis and assessment, perceptual training has a clear feedback on accuracy of perception. Recording analysis is at discretion of learner. ASR depends on accuracy of the system, so the language model or the acoustic model would be important in this case. And visualization depends on familiarity with visualization images. So even if like waveforms or sagittal views of pronunciation is given, if you can't interpret it, it's no use. It's no good. And the inputs are all high quality. There's a variety of native speakers. And for autonomy, it's very limited overall. Okay, so now we arrive at conclusion and future research. The advantages of CAPT is that it can provide individualization, autonomy, and repeatability, and abundant options. So we only looked at some 10 or so of examples, but there will be a bunch more out there in the field, in the wild. We can evaluate CAP system systematically with 5 components. So if you look back, there were these 5 criteria where you can use to evaluate CAP systems. However, we still have some problems to solve, and the author suggests 5 of them. Which feature impacts the most on intelligibility? How can we develop engaging and pedagogically sound software? How can CAP be more communicative? How can we integrate perceptual and production training? What technological improvements is needed for creative learning? Okay, this is the end of this video, and thank you for listening.